Hey folks. Been a long time since I've been in front of the camera because I've been focused on the Beyond the Scanlines series where I've been a little more documentary-ish and less on the camera. But we've hit July and it's sort of 6 months since the new series has been going, and being that there's an extra weekend, the 2 week. There's an extra weekend, so I thought I'd sit down and do a quick retrospective of where I think things have gone in the last 6 months, and also took the time to ask channel Patreon supporters to give me some questions to answer. So I really want to just sort of focus on this in 3 parts. Firstly, the 6-month retrospective, and we'll kick off with that. And really, one of the things I've been really impressed with is the performance of the channel. I did a lot of the changes in changing format at the start of the year because I felt things were not quite as solid as they were previously. Despite all the work I was doing in doing the weekly Rob Play stuff, it really wasn't paying off. Like, I wasn't getting the interactions that I wanted. And that was the thing I really enjoy most with making videos. Talking to people about these games that I find really interesting and hopefully inspiring them to check it out. That was something that really wasn't happening. And so doing the weekly schedule, it also meant I wasn't able to dive into games as heavily as I wanted. And I'd like to think, if you've been watching Beyond the Scanlines, you've noticed that there's been that celebration of a lot more detail into the games, why they work, what I like about the mechanics and things like that. And hopefully that's something you've really been able to appreciate and convince you more to check out games, even the ones that haven't been so good. So on the front, I was actually really surprised that despite cutting back and doing, half the videos, because I'm only doing 2 videos a month now, that the views were pretty much the same kind of growth I had from 2017 to 2018. Feels like it's been keeping up. Now, admittedly, a lot of that is really off the back of 2 videos in particular. The video celebrating the reset, the magazine staff's games of the year. I was on the panel that decided those, and I put the official video together. Didn't quite be as I wanted. A whole bunch of production reasons, kind of the reasons that are impacting issue 13, unfortunately. And that did really well, which is not a surprise. Not very good on the discussion terms, but no surprise there. And the other one, of course, was Ultra Core, which was the packing game bundled with Analog's Mega SG, which is, quite frankly, the thing I've enjoyed playing most this year. The system, that is. Ultra Core is great, but I'm kind of stuck in it. So, and that kind of meant, watch time went down, but it didn't go down as dramatically as I thought, and I'm very happy about that, and I'm really grateful to everyone who stuck around, despite the format, despite, I know there are people, when I did the video in January talking about a lot of this stuff, I know there are a lot of people who didn't like the news, didn't like that change, they don't like the scripted episodes. But there are people who have kept on with that, and I'm really grateful. I'm also a little disappointed that some people who said they were going to try and be better support-wise haven't. Maybe the new format just didn't click with them. Whatever. The comments is the thing I think I'm most disappointed with. The interaction there, that's really dropped, and it's continued to drop. Like I said, it kind of bumps me out a bit. I've had some good discussions with people. Maybe some was just moving off YouTube, and if that's the case, maybe I should just turn comments off on the videos in general. I don't know. At least when I conduct myself in terms of watching other people's content, I usually try to find something insightful to say on their videos in response. The fact that the same doesn't quite happen. I don't know, maybe it's something I'm doing wrong that I'm not quite worked out. So generally the 6 months so far has actually been better than I thought. I'm actually kind of happy despite that. Despite some of the things, and it's been good. I've really been enjoying that format. I've really been enjoying expanding the platforms out further. I've been able to play a lot more interesting stuff, and that's also been expanded by things that have happened, other communities and stuff I've been involved with this year. So it's really, really expanded stuff in a way that's made making videos more exciting for me, when for a while it kind of wasn't. A lot of the back half of 2018, I was a little down on it, and I don't know if I mentioned this in January, but I had actually considered last year just ending it once I'd finished episode 300, which would have been Paradroid. Once Paradroid was done, I knew for a long time that was going to be 300, and I would almost have thought it was the one I was going to end the show on and just move on. I really enjoyed it, but this year, it's been a lot of the process in making these videos, and even though things have gone wrong, which I'll get to, it's been something that I've personally really enjoyed doing. So what has gone wrong? I think one of the things for me, if in terms of videos that I wish could have been better, I think the one that really strikes out is the is the one celebrating the SNK 40th anniversary. The idea was, to look at the home conversions of ports of those games, because a lot of them, they're really hard to track down on the 64. I mean, technically, out of all of them, the only one I had across the two parts of all those games covered was the European 64 version of Ikari Warriors. The other ones have been kind of tough to track down. Even though Tank, which was rough but still playable, I really want to get that one. Haven't really been able to find it. And of course, the less said about the likes of Athena, the better. So I think that doing the way I did it, having the 2 videos with a lot of games in there, it was a lot of work to actually put together on the 2-week schedule. And I wonder if perhaps what I should have done is done like a little side series of it where I was going to do one game and the ports in each episode. So, I'd have an episode which was Tank, and it would be talk about the arcade version and the 64 and Spectrum versions in a little more detail, and so on. That might have worked better, especially when getting to Ikari Warriors, because that was like 6 versions. Would have been 7th, but my MSX is playing up at the moment, so I wasn't able to grab footage. So that's a lot of versions. I think that minor split as a secondary thing might have been a little more interesting for people to watch. It's something I'm thinking of now, especially as I'm doing the video I'm working on, the next Beyond the Scanlines episode, or episodes, as we'll get to that later. I wonder about that. I don't know what people thought. I really felt the interactions, the comments in that video, there wasn't a lot of good discussion in there, which is why I kind of thought that maybe that wasn't the right plan. The other thing for me, which really hasn't quite gone to plan, has been the release schedule. So, if I were to formally talk about one, it's the 2nd and 4th Saturdays of every month. That's 2 weeks for me to work on a video, which is enough time to script and edit and stuff. I essentially, a lot of the video work is done on weekends. I might be able to grab some footage during weeknights after work, but there's been some shifts in how things run for me that kind of mean I don't have as much time as I'd like. Like, I used to just personal transit, public transport to work. It takes a lot of time and things like that. So it's kind of not quite gone to plan. And beyond that, there's been some interference. Like, I've been sick a few times. The worst part was getting sick on a week that I'd taken as annual leave, which really messed things up back in April. Other times with the original video I was working on, like when I did Turn and Burn, I was actually planning that to be a little earlier in the list. I had a whole bunch of things where I needed to re-grab footage, and there just wasn't enough time to re-grab footage and fix it all up before it was due, so I put it on ice and did Enduro Racer instead. A lot of things like that. And the problem is right now, I sort of run very much seat of the pants. I don't really have a backlog like some other channels do, and it does mean things get a little more complicated, which is a problem. That's something I really want to work on. I don't know how yet. I think maybe trying to just do I've been able to do episodes in a weekend from scratch, like script, capture footage, edit together. And so maybe I need to have more of those episodes in the can that are mostly ready to go. Even if it's footage and scripting, like the script written, the VO recorded, the game footage captured. So all it means I need to edit it together and do the B-roll shots, physical shots and stuff like that in the interim before that goes out. I don't know. That's something I really want to. I really want to work on. Hopefully I can do that a bit in the back half of the year. But the things which have gone right, when I consciously made the change in format, I thought the channel's performance was going to dip significantly, and it really hasn't. That's actually been something which has been a bit of a relief to me. I was a bit worried about that because I honestly thought that, if the interactions, and while some of that stuff has changed a little too much, I thought it was going to go okay. I mean, and sort of aside for that is, one of the big problems I had last year was a lot of toxic behavior, a lot of smart aleck comments and insults and stuff. And there's been some of it this year. Thankfully, I usually get on it pretty quickly, so you don't see those comments, and a lot of them are directed pretty much at me. That's gone down as well, which has actually been it's been a bit of a load off my shoulders. I'm not being attacked for doing stuff that I enjoy, and it's making, like I said, it's been making the channel more enjoyable again. And the last thing that sort of fills on with that is the episodes that I actually really enjoy putting together. The debut episode, Blaster, is still the episode I think really sums up what I'm aiming for with the series, exploring these games that have interesting stories or things like that. And it really sort of means it's stuff I've really been enjoying. That Blaster is a really good one for that format. It was really concise, and it sort of covered that and its history and whatnot. I really love the Dreadnought Factor, which is one of those emergency put it together in a couple of days episodes. I showed off the game very well. There's a lot to it. It doesn't have the development story, but it's an interesting, underappreciated gem that I thought really sold it very well. And the other one I really liked was Redshift. That specky homebrew game really pushed the spectrum hard, and I thought it was a really good look at a new release and diving into it in a bit of detail. Redshift is strongly recommended by me, and I really think you should check it out, which is why I wanted to do the video on it. That's really the first one. I just want to have a quick retrospective of where I think the channel's going and how I think it's doing okay. The second part here is what we're going to call some housekeeping. I just want to refresh, what the goals of the series are. And they're really, as I sort of say in the intro, it's a series examining interesting games on classic computing and gaming hardware, right? That acknowledges that it's not just about home computers, which even though that's sort of my specialty retro area, I've liked expanding out and checking out a lot more console stuff, adding the Master System, the Mega Drive, and the SNES as part of the stuff I cover. It's kind of interesting. I'm wanting to do some Game Boy stuff, so there may be some of that coming through as well. And it'll expand. I really want to get that mix up, I think this has really been the biggest step away for me. Like, I still love the C64. It's an amazing machine. I still spend a lot of time playing it. I still collect heavily for it. You can only see a subset of stuff here, but there's a lot of stuff I enjoy with that system. And quite frankly, like the 8-bit machines are still going to be part of it. It's just I like exploring this stuff because it's what I enjoy most about the hobby, being able to explore stuff that never came out here, that I never heard of, and getting to learn a lot about it. And hopefully you as viewers enjoy that as well. Learning to see a bit different, getting outside your comfort zone a bit. I don't know. That's what I really enjoy. So it also means, there's going to be the celebration of the new stuff out there. I got rather recently the reissue of It's Magic 2 from Protovision. I would like that's a game that came out in that sort of 2001-ish. So that sort of era when the 64 homebrew scene was sort of kind of dipping down. It was way before it sort of started to pick up again. So I think that's a very interesting game that's worth checking out. Like things like that, why I find that interesting. But interesting really means things that have an interesting, that have stories in the development. Blaster was like that, being that it was originally written for the Atari home computers, then enhanced and expanded for its arcade release. And then it didn't do so well in the arcade, so the Atari version was dropped. Ultra Core, a game that was essentially finished and then scrapped before being resurrected. And the way that's been resurrected has been very interesting. There are games that push hardware in interesting ways, in exciting ways. Redshift on the Spectrum is the kind of shooter that you haven't really seen on that machine before, and it really pushed the hardware well. Why I covered it. And of course, games which try to do something different or unique. Turn and Burn, the flight sim on the Super NES was one of those games where it tried to use the tech of the machine and the lower capabilities in an interesting way, but it didn't quite work. And I thought it was an interesting game to check out regardless, right? Or, of course, games which are lesser known. They're usually more interesting because they're lesser known. Again, this is a series that isn't bound by platform. I'm going to cover a mixture of 8-bit computers and 16-bit stuff and console stuff. Of course, I am bound by systems I have on offer. So, I don't have every machine out there. Some of those machines I'm probably not going to be able to get at a reasonable price. That's just the way it is. A lot of this is self-funded from my income from my day job. And that always means it's going to be challenging. The next little sort of housekeeping thing I want to talk about is basically the requests and reviews. I've always said for a long time I don't really like taking requests from people. The reason for that is not to be rude or anything. Is that right? Essentially what it comes down to is I like to sort of have a physical copy of the game I collect. And I like to also be able to put some time into it. And so if someone goes, "I'll do this game," I don't feel I get to explore it properly before covering it, which is kind of why I like doing what I do in terms of covering these games that I find interesting in my own time and own pace. And hopefully that makes a better video. I know some people just want to relax and watch someone waffle over a game. Personally, I don't find myself enjoying that kind of stuff anymore. I really want to learn what makes this game interesting or special or whatever. That's a personal preference. I know a lot of people don't. A lot of people don't like. A lot of people want that kind of stuff, and that's not me. And again, it works with the strengths of the kind of viewpoint I have, the kind of knowledge I have, and it plays better to what I am, to who I am as a person. So that's why I've kind of backed away from a lot of that. So it's why I don't really like taking requests. I mean, if I hunt something down, like if someone says you might want to check this out, I'll go, okay, I might try and hunt it down and see if it's the kind of thing I find interesting enough to cover on the series. But again, that's a very complex scenario. So I usually don't offer. I usually don't accept outright. That hasn't been something asked for a while, but there's always some of those comments from time to time about it. And the last bit of housekeeping is I really want to talk about some of the episode plans. So at least in the short term, the episodes going out over the next couple of weeks is going to be a look at the games submitted to the RGCD compo, which just finished a few days ago as I'm recording this. That's going to be a 2-part. There were 20 games, so 2 videos with 10 games each, and then a roundup, what my thoughts were, what my favourites were, and things like that. I've done videos like that for the past contests, so I thought, it's back this year, let's do a video like that again. At the moment, I've scripted about my thoughts on about half the games, and I captured footage for about half, so I've almost got everything together to do the first episode. As well, I really, really, really want to get back to my Saturday schedule. So if all goes well, that'll be going up on Saturday, and the second part will be the Saturday after. Which means that there's actually going to be 3 Scanlines episodes this month, because I do want to get the normal review I've been working on for a few weeks in the slot after that. There's trying to keep that flow is really important. One of those videos, look, so there's 2 3-platform roundups, like one game on the 64, Amiga, and Spectrum. There's 2 of those videos in the works. One of those was started several months ago, unfortunately. So I'm hoping to get those out there over the next few weeks as well. Then there's at least one video idea I want to do, again inspired by It's Magic 2, is modern reissues of games for classic kit. There's been a few of us, especially more in the console space than on classic home computers, where a classic game gets reissued physically for original hardware, and so you can play it on. It's a new issue of a classic game to play on a classic system. I think that's a really interesting way in sort of the wider keeping these games around in circulation and not just relying on ROM sites. So, if it's all above board, the right people are getting paid for it, I think it's a great thing. So I'd like to do a video on that. And of course, there'll be plenty of game reviews. I might do some hardware expansion reviews. There's a couple of those on the list I do want to actually do pieces on. But we'll see how we go throughout the year. There's always plenty of stuff and plenty of time, and new releases as they come out are always things I'm going to cover as well when they're interesting. And that's really where things are at on that front. I've sort of talked about housekeeping and plans going forward, and so the final part of this video I want to focus on is just I opened it up to my channel patrons. Whilst I don't need that stuff to really, it helps keep the channel going, and it's been Patreon support has been really helpful for me personally over the last few years, over some moments in the last few years of the channel. So it's important to me, and it's beer money that helps keep, that I can spend now and then enhancing stuff for the channel. But anyway, there are only a couple of questions here, but they were really good ones, and they're going to make some interesting answers. So I shall read them out. The first one is, how do you choose which games to cover? I know you have personal connections or interests in many of them, but I feel a lot must get sidelined. Love the fact you're bringing so much interesting stuff forward that would otherwise just get buried for being obscure. Well, that one's a great one. So there is the connection. Like I've always said, I like having at least a physical copy on at least one platform to cover. And the reason for that is being able to have access to documentation and the feelies and whatever else. You can pull a PDF down or a text file with instructions, but it's just not the same. And a lot of the games I like playing do have, layered mechanics that make that stuff really interesting. It definitely does things, but alongside that physical connection, there's also stuff like the new releases, There's a bunch that are digital only that I want to cover and talk about because they're interesting, People supporting classic computers and consoles, this era is still amazing. And seeing the scene go even bigger and more popular, I'm really excited by that on that level, just from the people who do their time to do it. if my own situation had more time to hand, I would probably do it. I really want to write C64 stuff, Atari 8-bit stuff. I'm really excited for Spectrum next. I'm looking forward to that arriving because that looks like some cool kit to program. And the same with the Mega 65, which is the, kind of what the Spectrum Next does for the Spectrum, the Mega 65 does for the Commodore 65, which was an unreleased machine. I'm really excited by that. And that's stuff I personally want to do, but time is just not possible for me. But I do have to admit, there are a lot of games that do get sidelined. Some of those are I'm just terrible at them. And I like when I record footage and videos, all the footage you see is me playing. Whether that's an arcade game that I'm using for like 30 seconds of B-roll in MAME, or a game on another console, or whatever. It's usually me actually playing the game to grab it. I don't like rip footage off other people, even people who would be more than amenable to that. I just don't. I like grabbing it myself. I like grabbing it to see on, from my hardware or whatever. And I hope that's a little detail that you all appreciate. It doesn't help actually. I actually did record some footage for another person to use in a video, and the final results did not look good. I am a bit of I care a lot about the quality of what I do. So, I do that. And there are games that I'm just terrible at, and I don't really want to play with cheats fully when I want to do a bigger review of them. Sometimes it's just the games there are games I want to cover that are gigantic in scope. Like, so back in 2016, I did a Rob Plays reviewing Ultima 1. Ultima 1 was pretty small in scope. And at the start of last year, I wrote, I have a review script for Ultima 2, which I've written. And Ultima 2 is a very problematic game in terms of the way its mechanics work, not in terms of its content or theming. I really want to do that because I want to do that sort of retrospective. That one, I've just not had a chance to go back and reformat to be a more Beyond the Scanlines focused piece, grab the truckload of footage I need from the Apple II and C64 to show it in action. All of that stuff, there's a lot of work there and I've got to do it. But then there's just sometimes where there's a game where, and I run into this a lot where I want to cover a game, but I wonder whether I should do it as a single format piece or cover it on as many on the machines I've got it on. I can run it on. And when that happens, there's a lot of hardware switching around and stuff, which can be problematic. I still don't have a wide variety of space. This room I'm recording in has more space, but it's definitely not space to have machines set up. It's more of a storage space. So things like that can be tricky and can be complex. And as for the obscure stuff, I think a lot of it's just because there's a lot of games out there that have already had people do interesting videos on. They've had interesting videos made. They've had all that cool discussion done. I want to pick some stuff that's not likely going to get those kind of videos made. Those are the things that interest me as a player of games and as a maker of them. I like seeing those mechanics, being able to discuss those mechanics. That's why there's always been that sort of designy mechanics, gameplay, things that work focus in the videos I've done, whether older Rob Play stuff or the current Beyond the Scanlines videos. I like that stuff because it's what interests me in terms of creation, in terms of learning. And I hope that I convey that well. And I hear people say that, but that's kind of it. That was a really cool question, so thank you very much for that. The second of the questions is, as always, I want to throw out something a little random. So let's say, which game would you take from classic computer libraries and want to see people make versions of through every generation up until now? But for time's sake, say 8-bit, 32-bit, PlayStation, Xbox to PS4, 360, etc. This is another good one because it's a bit of a hard choice. Because one of the things that you want to think about is, does the game in its original 8-bit form have some interesting enough mechanics to be expanded on, right? One example is Elite. Look at Elite Dangerous, what they've done in expanding original Elite out. It's pretty impressive, a little too impressive. I really want to play Elite Dangerous, but the whole MMO kind of thing turns me off a bit. I really wish they'd... I know they say there's an offline mode, but it doesn't feel quite as exciting. So that's an example. But I'm going to keep it kind of simple, and we'll go old school with Star Raiders as released on the Atari 8-bit computers. This would have, had I been alive when this originally came out, it would easily have sold me on one of those machines. It's an amazing game, an amazing challenge for what it fits in such a small small ROM. It's a very challenging, very tense game. And in a ways, that did get a remake port kind of deal, at least to the Atari ST. And then there was one a few years ago for like the 360 PlayStation 3 era that was not very good. It was just the name slapped on something. But I really think you could build out Star Raiders in a lot of ways. Part of those ways, of course, were shown in the Star Raiders 2, the Arik Wilmunder version, which I really wanted to cover, but apparently the build that's out just has little glitches on PAL Atari hardware. But that had things like having to go down onto planets and still running on a stock Atari, I presume 600XL, 800XL being the era. Like, it still had those expanded mechanics. And I think you could do a lot more with Star Raiders, even Solaris on the Atari 2600, which was by the original creator of this, Doug Neubauer, offers a lot of interesting expansions as well. And to see those done on 8-bit hardware is really impressive. But imagine what could be done on 16 or 32-bit hardware. You could have probably more in-depth systems. You could have a more interesting damage model, a lot more interesting enemies in terms of threats to target, scenarios. There's a lot I think you could do, and not just the visual 3D-ness, but a lot of mechanics around, like the flight simulate, the flight modeling, the kind of things you could do. Like, imagine you'd have sectors in asteroid belts, so you have to be a little more careful how you fly through, or you might have to do more enhanced docking. I think there's a lot of things like that which you could do that would really add up to making a very interesting experience. I really do love the heck out of Star Raiders. It's a great game, and I'd love to see that expanded on. But unfortunately, being stuck in the realm of Atari, what Atari is now is a bit of a downer. So I don't know if that's going to happen anytime soon, if you catch my drift. On the upside, I do love that at least the Atari 5200 version, which is basically the same, was reissued in the latest Flashback Classics collection, which also, being the version that's ported on the Switch, means that I have portable Star Raiders on the go, which excites me quite a lot. That was also a really good one. I am a little down that I didn't get more, but I'm really thankful for those ones because they were good, insightful thoughts. So I think this is pretty much it. That's everything I really wanted to talk about in just this roundup, just to refresh on where things are going. Things could be better, but they're solid, so I can't really complain. I am really thankful for everyone who has stuck around with the channel despite these format changes. Doing this kind of stuff, sometimes it feels like you're calling out into the void. I put a video up in the evening, and I stay up for a few more hours before it's my bedtime, hoping for responses, and sometimes, channel responses come through, sometimes they don't. But I really love sharing this. Like, a moment that really meant a lot to me was when I did Firefly earlier this year. A friend of mine who is a big Spectrum fan hadn't played it on the Spectrum originally, so when he saw the video, he really dug it up, started playing it on emulator, and got really hooked. And seeing those kind of tales, hearing those things from people, that really it really means a lot to me, and I'm really thankful to hear those. I really do hope these videos that I do, the Beyond the Scanlines series, does encourage you to revisit stuff and encourages you to support the new homebrew developers when I cover those games. I really, I like to think this comes out of a lot of love for the medium, for the people's works, because games are made by people. And that's why, I really have found myself turned off by the sort of angry critic thing that others do. I don't really enjoy that. I enjoy a nice, chilled, respectful reflection on these games. And sure, there are ones that are terrible, but I think you can learn interesting things from them of what not to do. So I'm going to leave it there. Again, thank you very much for taking your time out to watch this. I'm hoping that you'll enjoy the RWCD Roundup, which is coming up. It's a good video. At least I hope it is from my script. I'm looking forward to doing it. And I will catch you on the next video. So thank you all very much, and I'll catch you then.